Hi guys, before we get into the video, if you'd like to support the channel, please check out our Patreon. I'll leave the links in the description and in the comments. Enjoy the video. Hi guys, welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome to the first Premier Division show of the season. I'm delighted we're here. I'm delighted to welcome back JP. JP, how are you?
Oh, good, Keith. Thanks for having me on. Before we begin, just like to pay a wee tribute to a massive Derry City supporter who was laid to rest this afternoon in the city cemetery, Vinnie Cunningham. Um, as I said, massive Derry City supporter followed the team home and away in Block J, Brandywell Pride buses for away matches. Nearly sure he was on the cup final bus there in November as well. Um, well known throughout the city for his work. He was a filmmaker, producer, cameraman. Some of the work that he done, like documentaries about the Troubles. His footage was in them. He worked with the Undertones. And one of the most recent videos that he was he filmed, he produced, and he was editor of was a music video with the Undertones and the with the local special needs school here in Derry, and it was a collaboration. And he was, as I said, he filmed it, produced it, and he was edited it. And just like they say to his son Niall, who went to matches with him, that we're all thinking about him and his family at this difficult time. His sister Orla, his mum Deborah, and um that Vinny's grandchildren as well. So yeah, I could sit here all night and talk about Vinny, and I wouldn't do him justice. But Niall, if you're watching, we're all thinking about you and your family.
That's brilliant, JP. Fair play to you. On to the football now, and Cork City take on Galway United at Turner's Cross on the Friday. And obviously, Cork City are back in the Premier Division. I'm expecting a packed out Turner's Cross for this one. Galway United will probably see it as look, every fixture away from home in particular. I think any open day of the season is always a difficult fixture, but very interesting game. John Caulfield, of course, gone back to Cork City. Yeah, but Cork City, a lot of their players have come from abroad, haven't they? And it's very hard to judge some of them, like so Benny Couto's come in and Shipson has come in for Sheffield Wednesday and loan, etc. But I think for Cork, the big thing for them this season is how well Maguire and Keating do, and even Cottle O'Sullivan, who's a very good young player as well. I think they're going to be key to Cork City this season and how well they may or may not do, to be honest with you, JP. And Galway have kept the bulk of their squad, so they have anyone. I've looking at them the other day, and anyone, let's say they wanted to keep, they've kept basically. No first team type players have actually left Galway United. A lot of people say that Moses Dyer is one to watch, and a few people from Galway are telling me that, so I'm going to trust them a little bit here, JP. But an interesting game in the opening day of the season, nonetheless, and hopefully there's a big turnout at Turner's Cross. The only thing I'll say about Cork City in terms of their ticket prices is €25 for a home ticket. Seems to be a little steep, especially say if they struggle later on in the season. Will the crowds keep coming? So I don't know about that. But Cork City and Galway United, I suppose. How you seen both sides going into the season, essentially?
It's the first game of the season, and it's hard to call. Normally, as a promoted team, like everybody wants to start at home, and as a promoted team, you ideally want to start at home, and Cork have got that, and they've got it against an old foe, in John Caulfield. So I'm sure they'll know what they're coming up against, coming into this game. And it's like I don't think the recruitment has been anything standout. I think the big signings in the July window,
Mm,
and Maguire and Keaton, was probably pointing towards um the the Premier Division, because I
yeah.
think they were, when they came in, they were well clear, weren't they?
Mm.
So they've had a while. They blend in at the back end of last season. Um eh, it's well, they've got the service for them guys, Keith. It remains to be seen, and we know the last time they came up, they were quite late as well in getting the recruitment, all because of the takeover, etc. ultimately they ended up losing in the relegation playoff to Waterford, so that's probably set them back a year or so. Um, Losing that. Um, Look, we seen how well Galway done last year. They were right in the mix for European football right up to the end. Can they do that again this year? Well, I'm sure that's will be the aim within the dressing room, um, and no better way they maintain that ambition than they go away to Turner's Cross in the first game of the season and pick up 3 points if they can.
Yeah, it's just while you're talking, I was thinking it's a very settled out Galway squad. They've brought in a
Yeah.
couple of players, but they could easily play a team that lined out last season, and that's a good
Yeah.
thing, I think. You know what I mean? The likes of Bruder, Clark, Dave Hurley's been playing well in pre-season, was in with the team last season, so it'll be interesting to see if he can kick on. Patrick Hickey, of course, Jimmy Cohan, who came in the July window, is a player that has done well for them as well.
Cunningham
And
as
of
well, they
course,
got in July.
sorry.
Brought in Cunningham in July as well,
And
didn't they?
Cunningham. I think he might be injured for this particular game, but he's getting there, which is good for them. He's
And I think he's been installed as the club captain too, hasn't he? He
yeah,
took over
so
Conor
exactly.
McCormick.
So he's a huge player for the season anyway, isn't he? But yeah, for this game, I'd probably fancy Galway for those reasons because I know more about them, but also they just look more settled coming
Mm.
into the season. And Cork might have a bit of we don't know how good they actually are, but they definitely have to. A few players have to be bedded into the side. Galway
Yeah.
don't really have that problem. As a result, I think there might be a better, well-oiled machine, and certainly going into this game. So I think Galway might nick it here, JP, maybe 1-0.
Yeah, just touching on your point there of Galway having a settled team, and when you've had a successful season, and it was
Mm.
a successful season for them last year. Did they end up fifth and end up was it sixth,
Fifth,
uh
yeah. Yeah.
fifth? So for me, that was a successful season. And when you've had a season like that, you want to be settled going into the next season. As you said there, they could probably put out an 11 that was there last year, and the additions is they just make them that wee bit more competitive this season because they've probably saw, you know what, we're a year ahead of schedule. Why don't we sign players and push us ahead of schedule yet again? So yeah, unfortunately for Cork, I can only see one winner in this game as well. I know Galway didn't score a lot of goals last year, and maybe that's something that they're maybe going to, we don't know, maybe try and add to this year. But I think they'll win. I'm going to say 2-0.
I was just thinking that's my first 1-0 Galway prediction for the season already. Next up is I think probably the most look, they're all intriguing, and the Bows Rovers game be looked at because it's at the Aviva as well, and obviously it's always an intriguing game. But certainly in the Friday night for me, Shelbourne and Derry City is a very interesting game at Talca Park, and Shelbourne obviously are the champions coming into the season, and there's two ways to look at the Shelbourne. Bit of pressure on them, but also you could argue that they could gain belief from actually winning that league as well. They brought in some
Yeah,
players, and not too many players, but I think you'd argue they've strengthened their squad as such. Like Ellis Chapman coming in, I think Maipo Odebeko looks like he could be a good signing as well. I did watch them last Friday, and one thing I'll say about that game is that they look sharp and they look fit and they look ready. Looking at their team as well, I'd be very surprised if there were any changes actually, unless there was an injury to the team that played against Drogheda, being honest, in their selection. Ledwidge was at left back. I know Wilson is out, so that he'll continue there. Boyd and Maipo will probably play up front. Wood will probably play in the left. Cooch probably will play in the right, but I think if they make any change, it might be there. JJ Lunny was on the bench for Kerr. McEnroy made his debut, but it was good for them to give him his debut and give him 90 minutes, I think. Or yeah, he did play 90 minutes in the game actually. So I think Lunny will be back in midfield with Coyle. Derry, I'm going to this game as well, so I'm going to be vlogging this game. I'm very intrigued how Derry are going to line up, how they'll play, which players will play out of the new players, etc., etc. That to me, they're the most interesting team of the weekend in relation to that. And I wonder if you think the same from a Derry point of view.
yeah. Well, we're excited. With the new additions, like I know others have labelled as Craggy Island FC and stuff like that. But when you look at the quality of the players that they've brought in, Keith, like three of them have, I think, over 100 odd caps for Northern Ireland, and then I think the fourth one was Winchester, who's unfortunately he'd only one cap, and with the length of time that he spent in England and the clubs that he
Hmm,
played for, it's quite
it
surprising that
is
he only
actually.
ended up with one. And then you've got Dom Thomas as well, who they brought in from the Championship in Scotland, and um, we're we're excited. We really are. I was chatting to somebody today, and look, we're not going to be judged on the performance. We're not going to be judged on the result on Friday night.
Mhm.
Um, I think if they go down to Tolka Park and just put it in, watching them over pre-season, there was a lot more intensity off the ball, Keith.
Yeah.
Um, they were hounding in packs, and I'm not trying to put pre-season as a marker, but they see that intensity in pre-season of losing the ball and trying to get it back straight away. And there's a lot of mixing up their game as well. It wasn't just diagonal ball from Conley to Duffy. There was trying to play it into midfield, get the likes of Gavin White involved in the play and stuff like that. And Derry will be, I think Derry probably been the busiest team. I think most,
Mhm.
even though when you look at the start 11 from last year, really the one regular that they have lost was Will Patchen,
Mm.
who went back to England. Patrick McGlynny would have been a regular starter if of course we could keep him fit, but he's at Ballymena now, but he's still involved in the Derry setup as a coach. So hanging on the Adam O'Reilly and Brian Maher for me was the two biggest signings. Once they'd kept a hold of them, it was about it was about making the squad better, in my opinion. And I think they've definitely done that. Um,
It's a case of
it's
JP probably how
it's a case
quickly
of
they
wait and
might.
see.
Yeah,
It's a case of wait and see with them.
yeah.
But and I said a few weeks ago when people were slagging them off and calling them Craggy Island FC and um, saying that the signings, the age profile, it won't work. For me, it's not the window that's going to define Tiernan Lyons, but it's going to be
Mm,
his most important window because he has to get a team on the pitch that's going to have him competitive from the very beginning.
mm,
For him, the most important thing for him is Derry City getting back into Europe at the very, very least. So he has to have be in with a shout with that from almost the beginning. And if he's in there come the mid-season in June, when the rest of them are heading off to play in Europe, but if he's in the shout there, then maybe they could be in with a shout of league title. You can't make any predictions. You said there about Galway having a settled team.
mm,
Ideally you want to go from season to season, maybe just adding one or two, but sometimes you do have to bring in six, seven, eight.
mm.
I think Derry lost about six, seven, eight, but as I said, the one regular starter was Will Patson out of them players. So um, if if they can stay injury free, this Derry team, and I know a lot of people put blame on the pitch, which is probably fair enough, but um, and having the 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 new training place at Owen Beg with the
Mm.
Derry GA as well is going to be it's going to add another professionalism, another bit of professionalism to the team, and um, yeah, I say like we're really excited. The new stand, not sure if it's going to be ready for Bowes next week or whenever, but whenever it is open, it's going to make a massive difference to the ground. Like, and look, they always say no better place they start as a new manager in a new league and going to the home of the champions, and I'm sure Tiernan Lynch is relishing it. And yeah, I think it's a good fixture to start. It really is. For us Derry fans, Shelbourne fans, and the neutrals in the league, and they always start with the TV always start with the champions, don't they? So why change now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an intriguing game, and I suppose, as I said, it's very hard to predict Derry City, and like Shelbourne are the opposite. Like they look like a well-oiled machine at the moment, don't they? And we know they're well coached. We know that they have a squad of players now are winners. I suppose you could really say, and you know what you're going to get from them. We don't
Suppose
really
last
know.
year you touched on there earlier, sorry, the
Yeah,
Shelbourne have added to their squad.
yeah.
And I suppose they kind of needed it because we
Mm,
always felt that they were maybe a long-term injury away
mm.
from not winning the league, and um, they the long-term injuries wasn't quite long term. It was maybe 4 weeks at a max. No, like Sean Boyd or somebody else, Paddy Barrett, I think maybe was out for a time as
It
well.
happened a
So
little later in the season for
yeah,
them.
it
They kind
happened.
of had a, they were
Yeah,
okay for
and,
most of the season, I would say. Yeah.
and I think Damon Duff has done well with the additions he's made. You
Mm.
touched upon somewhere, and Dan Kelly as well from Derry City as well.
They
So
can keep him fit, of course. Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately Derry couldn't keep him fit. So and I think he didn't really show what he had at Dundalk in previous years. So
Mm.
he'll be looking to, and I know he touched on it was being away from home as well. Kind of impacted him a wee bit. Like so, he's back in Dublin now, and for Shelbourne's sake, after Friday night, hopefully he can kick on. But yeah, it's an intriguing game. It's a hard one to call
I'd argue
because
it's the hardest one to call of the weekend.
it's the first game of the season, a new manager in the new league, new group of players looking to show what they're about. I'm going to say 2-1 Derry. I
Ooh,
have to. I have to. I
you've
have to.
gone for it. I'm gonna do my usual sitting on the fence that people be fully aware of when I haven't a clue what's going to happen in the game. I go for a one-all draw. That's what I usually do. The Richmond Park St Patrick's Day take on Drogheda United, and of course I got to see Drogheda United last weekend up and close, and I didn't see them the weekend before in the Jim Malone Cup where they were beaten 1-0 by Dundalk, but apparently they were very poor, and I spoke to a lot of Drogheda fans said they were very poor. I think they brought that into the game on Friday probably because I thought they were quite poor against Shelbourne on Friday. And funnily enough, the red card I think done them a favour, believe it or not, because I think after the red card, Drogheda sat in and thought, you know what, we're not conceding any more goals here. We're going to lose the game. And Shelbourne were kind of passing around as if they were training, so they weren't overexerting themselves either. So the red
I
card,
think
believe it or not,
I
yeah,
think Duff touched on that as well. So he did. The tempo dropped after the red card. I didn't see any of it. Just seen
yeah,
the
it did.
goals and the red card incidents. But Duff touched upon that as well. That the red card just brought the level of intensity down a bit.
It did. And Drogheda, just Drogheda were very poor all over the pitch, JP. There was an awful lot of long, aimless balls, and I don't know, just very aimless, like to say the least. The midfield struggled to deal with the Shelbourne midfield. Um, in attack, they look blunt. Now they are missing Douglas James Taylor, and luckily it looks like he's not out for as long as they thought he might be, but he's going to be out on Friday. Leash is definitely out for between 6 weeks and 2 months, so they're big losses for Drogheda. Are the type of side I feel missing a couple of key players. It's going to be very difficult. They're going to St Patrick's Athletic, who many, including myself, think they might end up winning the league title. JP, um,
Well, they'll
and
be
if they
there.
play like that on Friday night, just from a Drogheda perspective, if they play like that on Friday night again, they're not getting any points, to be honest with you. There's going to have to be a drastic improvement from Drogheda to get any points on Friday night, even if Pats don't play particularly well. I'm sure they know that, but can they drastically improve by Friday night? Pats obviously have Keane Levy now out, I think, for 3 months with an ankle injury. But they've El Bazzetti, they have Mulroney, of course, and they have Simon Power on the wings, even McClellan there too. Aidan Keane, it looks like he's flying apparently in pre-season as well. So it's difficult, isn't it, to see Drogheda get anything from the game. Again, first game of the season, hard to predict, but judging what I've seen of Drogheda, they're going to have to seriously improve, as I said, to get anything out of the game on Friday
Yeah.
night, I think.
Well, they had a great end the last season. Like and I think one of the reasons that was signing of Douglas James Taylor. So keeping him, if they can get him back as soon as possible, he'll be crucial to what they can achieve this season.
Mm,
They're full time this year. It
mm.
makes a 10-team professional league. The standards are just being driven up year by year, and it's all down to the club. And um, I think it's a difficult one for Drogheda. They're going to many people's favourites, and I'm probably going to say they're my favourites as well for the league, Keith. Just because of who they've got at the helm. We talked earlier about Galway having a settled team, and I
Mm.
think Pats have a settled team as well. Stephen Kenny done most of his wheeling and dealing in July in preparation for this year. And
Mm.
um,
Even the likes of Sean Hoare, JP,
yeah,
gives them an added
yeah,
bit of
like
experience, doesn't it,
Kenny's
as
worked with
well?
him before at Dundalk, and he was at Pats before he went to Dundalk. So and he's a four in a row title winner as well. So um, having experience like that in your dressing room is absolutely invaluable. For Drogheda, like as I said, they had a great end of the season. They won the cup, they won the playoff final, they maintained their Premier Division status. For them, they'll be wanting to kick on this year, and I think they'll be happy with no playoff. I think they'll be delighted with that. But
Mm.
I think where Drogheda could come is the extra Friday Monday games that they're going to have between now and May. They coincide with Europe, so that's where their squad could be tested.
Mm.
And that's where that over the course of the season, I would expect them. They have at the minute they have too much for Cork, but if they're going to be brought into the if because I'm thinking that Cork with their recruitment etc could well be finishing bottom, and it's probably one of the hardest leagues they predict in terms of who's going to finish where. But I think that's what could drag Drogheda into a relegation scrap is the extra games they're going to have to play over the first part of the season, like, and um their squad will be tested. It really will. So, but if they can hang, if they're in the say hanging in there by July, and where they can get extra bodies in, then there's no reason why they can't have another good end of season. But ideally, they'll be wanting to have a good season rather than a good end of the season. But for
Mm.
some Pats, like nine in a row at the end of last season, people have been saying if only Stephen Kenny had come in a few weeks earlier. If he didn't have in his first 4 days, haven't they played Derry and was it
Mm.
Shelbourne in his first 4 days
That's right, yeah.
where he lost both games? If he had a wee bit more time, they go
Mm.
into both them fixtures, he could have ended up coming out with 6 points, which could well have been the difference at the end of the season.
I suppose
But
that's
look at
ifs
what
and buts, isn't it, JP, as well?
yeah,
Like, you know,
it is. It's all hindsight. I was just
yeah.
about to say that, like, but
Mm.
they'll go into this season with a lot of confidence after that nine in a row at the end of last season, which ultimately got them from point of fighting they stay away from the relegation playoff. They ended up qualifying for Europe again.
Yeah, I can't see Drogheda getting anything out of this game. I really can't. I think Pats will beat them 3-1, to be honest, JP.
Yeah, I was thinking 3-0 some Pats myself.
On Saturday, the Bit of Red are back in action and typically having their Saturday game as well against Waterford FC. And look, it's been an interesting pre-season for Sligo Rovers. I don't know. They've lost so many key players, JP. Ed McGinty is obviously one. He's joined
It
Shamrock
wasn't their
Rovers
player to
now.
lose.
It's a massive loss. I mean, the amount of points he saved them last season. And, you know, obviously Ellis Chapman has gone. You're taking goals out of your team there.
Four hands away to Bulls.
Morahan's our captain.
It's
He's
a
gone.
surprising one for me.
That was a surprising one at the time. We'll speak about balls later, but they've an awful lot of midfielders. Moorhan, their captain, is gone. Simon Power is also gone. Like, they
Away to
were
Pats,
big,
isn't
big, yeah, they were big players for Sligo last year. We're talking about four, arguably, of their best players last year.
it?
Now, can they replace them? Have they replaced them? This is the
Barlow's
question.
away to Athlone as well,
He's
isn't he?
gone that loan too. They brought in up front. They brought in the likes of Keane Kavanagh. They have Owen Eldon, who's a young prospect who they might be looking at this season too. Still have Warrawoo at the club, but you're looking at them compared to other sides. It just looks like if John Russell gets them to finish sixth this season, honestly, he should be.
Manager of the year.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like, you're just
So
looking at them there and you're kind of going, like, some of the players they brought in, Sam Sargent, decent keeper, he's not McGinty. Ronan Manning at Galway wasn't getting in the Galway team. Jade Hakiki was up and down at Dundalk. Yeah, it's got potential.
Ian
Francie the
Cavanagh.
Boto wasn't getting in the Galway team. I mean, you know, apart from the loan signing of or the signing from Wellington of Oscar Van Hattem as an example, and maybe the loan signings of Matty Wolf and Harvey Lintott, as in, we don't know much about them, but my point
Yeah,
is they're dependent on those unknowns, I think, to
yeah,
be Ellis Chapmans, etc.,
yeah,
etc. Because if they're
yeah.
not, I think they're in serious trouble.
As you say, eventually it's all going to catch up on you.
Like if you look
Um,
at some of the players, for example, that Waterford brought in relation to, and you kind of go, Manny Smith, he'd be a great addition if you to Sligo Rovers, let's say. Maybe Tommy Lonergan back in loan for Fleetwood Town. Conan Noonan at Shamrock Rovers in loan. I think he's a really good player, Noonan. And he played well for the time he was there. Very good at set pieces as well. So if you look at those type of players, Andy Boyle, I think Andy Boyle's past his best, but he might bring a bit of experience to the Waterford backline that has struggled. But they'd be additions generally, you'd feel, to the Sligo Rovers squad and improve them, you'd feel.
yeah, I remember doing a European preview show a few years ago with I think it was Jared we had on from Sligo, and um
Hmm.
him both agreed that it's difficult for the likes of Derry and Sligo. They attract them kind of players. They they're the provincial
Hmm.
part of the country, unless you're prepared to pay big money. And
Like you
as I
say,
said
yeah,
already,
as you say, they're members club, and you've got that issue, yeah.
yeah, like we're as I said, Derry were they've always been fortunate to have Philip O'Doherty at Dale.
Mm.
He's putting a bit more money in than what he previously did. Say, like Sligo say, they're a members club. They rely on fundraising stuff like that, season ticket sales, merchandise sales, and um. Then you look at the players at Waterford for they've signed, and
Mm.
um again they have a benefactor behind them as well, and it's not Lee, it's what's his name again?
Jamie Piley's
Jamie
at the
Piley was
helm
a good
now,
okay.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, look, you say this the signings at Waterford signed. Sligo fans are probably sitting wondering, well, why can't we sign them type of players? And basically it all comes down to money at the end of the day, doesn't it? Like
Mm.
Waterford have the benefactor, Sligo don't, and I really do hope that John Russell can work his magic this year for Sligo, because I think the Premier Division needs it needs a good
He's a
Sligo.
likable character, I think, isn't he, Russell, as
Oh,
well?
he
Yeah.
is. Whenever there was talk of Rory was possibly not going to be staying on at Derry last year, he was one of the managers I had in mind simply because of what the job that he'd done.
Mm.
Not I wouldn't say on a shoestring budget, possibly shoestring compared to the rest of the league, but what he did on a shoestring squad, because they were literally down to their bare bones in terms of players that were fit, weren't they, at one stage last season? And once they started to get them all back, then he kept them competitive till he got his
My worry,
basically.
see, for them as well is that he plays this attacking game that's good in the
Yeah,
eye, but the problem is, which is fantastic, if and this is an if at the moment, you're worse than a lot of the opposition you're playing against, it's easier to play against them then for that reason. It's not like we're
yeah,
going to dig deep, really. He won't play that way, that kind of way
yeah.
generally. That's my worry for them in that sense. But for Waterford, though, they have lost a couple of really good players. Barry Bagley and, of course, Dara Power's gone to Cheltenham. So they're big losses for
Yeah.
Waterford, too.
They lost Christy Patterson as well to Glentoran, like,
Yeah,
and
that's true, yeah.
that's maybe another player that you could have thought maybe
Connor
did done a
Parsons,
job
I
at
know he's a bit up
Sligo.
and down, but
Yeah, them type of players you think
mm,
would definitely strengthen Sligo, like wouldn't it? Like, but it's an interesting one because you'd assume Sam Sargent's going to start against his former club. He'll want to put in a good performance for the Sligo Rovers fans.
mm.
Um, I'm going to call this a one-all draw, Keith. First game of season at the showgrounds, difficult venue to go to. Everybody writing Sligo off before the ball's kicked, and so I'm going to say 1-all.
I'm actually going to go 2-2 for this one. And I was just thinking ever speaking as well. The good thing about this weekend as well, before we get into Bows and Shamrock Rovers on the Sunday, is that, you know, the potential now is there to people who have LOI TV or might have something else that they can watch it on, let's say. The potential, the potential, I don't want to get into trouble. The potential there is obviously go to your game potentially on Friday night. Like, are you
Yeah.
going to the Derry game, for example,
Oh
Shell?
yeah, have it. Yeah, of
I'll be
course.
at Talca Park Friday night. I'll be able to watch Sligo and Waterford Saturday, and I'll actually be in the Viva on Sunday. So that's three games you're seeing.
Yeah.
Two live and one on actual TV in full. So that's
Be
great.
interesting to see with this new TV arrangement um how over the course of the 4 years
Mm.
it'll work out, whether they'll stick to Fridays or will they change it to a Saturday evening or Sunday evening or whatever, like but it's absolutely brilliant that LOI TV was a great addition. I think it was Watch LOI when we were we were locked out of stadiums, and then to keep back, everybody thought that once we all got back on the stadiums, that the League of Ireland would hold that. And
Mm.
but to their credit, they kept it going, which has been an absolutely brilliant
I
addition.
actually
And
thought it would take attendances down. That was my concern at
yeah,
the
I was
time.
just about to say that
Yeah.
too. Like, I think everybody thought that, and I think having it has probably helped increase the attendances, Keith, the interest in the league, and having a game every single weekend of the season. It's going to be brilliant for the league.
So the final game, JP, is on a Sunday, and that's obviously the big Dublin derby between Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers. Obviously, an interesting game in the calendar.
I think the result on Thursday will depend on the team selection on Sunday. So if they go the Malda and get a really good result,
Hmm.
Stephen Bradley, he'll put out a competitive team, yeah,
Hmm.
but he might not go full strength to begin with. Because if
I
they can,
sense they'll get a result and mould it in terms of, at the very least, of a chance of going through and Tala.
I just going
My
to say, if
sense.
they have a chance of going through against Malda the following Thursday, I just don't see them risking anybody with injuries or burning Pete, as you said. Like, they played right into the middle of December. They've got what, 2, 3 weeks off at the most.
I'd love to
Um,
know how they're going to deal with this in terms of preparing for a season. You'd love to
yeah,
know.
because you say like it's on charter territory for a League of Ireland club, because we're 9 times out of 10 our clubs are out of Europe by the end of August. Once every couple of years, we get a club that it goes into group stages, and we're finished by December. But having the new format, it really does suit the lower nations. And Shamrock Rovers have absolutely benefited from it, because I think if it had been a normal group stage where you played part one, part two, part three, part four, Shamrock Rovers probably wouldn't have made it out of the group. Quite possibly may not have picked up, well, maybe 2, 3 points at the most. But they go into the last game last game of the group phase and have a chance of missing out this round. It's an absolute testament to them, and it'll be interesting because I think come July they could maybe might need to sign, they keep the squad fresh.
I'd
Um,
argue, JP, at this minute in time as we speak, I'd argue their squad is weaker at this minute in time. Kenny's gone.
yeah, I was
Burns is
thinking
gone.
about it.
Peruge is gone. Even Sean Hoare, he's gone.
Before.
Am I missing somebody? I don't know if I'm missing somebody.
Miles away if you want to include him.
Yeah. Now I know they've added McGinty, which is huge because I think that proves a goalkeeper hugely, and I do believe Matt Healy's a good player. I liked him at Cork City. He's probably matured a bit since, and they won't have the injuries they had. But
Yeah,
there's a worry of burnout. Now that's later on the season, maybe the burnout scenario. That'll be interesting test later on the season. But some of the players they've lost there are big players, and like who are they going to play up front in the next
yeah,
game or two? Are they going to go with young Michael Noonan, who I think is very raw? We've seen how Mason Mealy has been protected at Pats and didn't play every week, but his development is higher than Michael Noonan. Do you know what I mean? He's a more developed player. You've got
yeah.
Aaron Green there. Gaffney is still unavailable. Of course, he could play Burke up front, but he doesn't normally play up front for Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah,
So,
it's just checking there. See, McNulty's left as well.
and McNulty's gone. He didn't really show much when he was there, if I'm honest with you.
He
So,
didn't, but
and Aaron
he,
Green can't play on Thursday and then play against Bohemians on Sunday.
no, where Johnny Kenny probably could have.
Yeah. So all of a
You know,
sudden, Ferrugia, we know Ferrugia's a huge loss. So he's a very good player.
yeah,
So they're definitely weaker going into the season. I thought, honestly, I was convinced they were going to have a striker by this point. I'm very
yeah.
surprised they haven't got
And
one.
I know the window's open until the 21st, so it'll be interesting to see
Hmm.
um if they do anything between in the next 10, 11 days in terms
And I
of
know
the
they've been trying JP with players, but it's not. They're not getting Hubin obviously now. They're not getting Afalabi either.
I
I don't
think
know where are they looking now.
the, because everybody knows the run that they had in Europe, they know they've got this money coming.
Hmm.
Players that they probably would have got for whatever 3, 4 months ago, they're probably on to pay double the price now, or the players that they're looking for,
Another problem.
they would have come for €2,000 or now wanting €5,000. And even a club like Shamrock Rovers, you have to have a limit on what you're going to pay players, and and stuff like that. So yeah, quite surprised myself that they haven't at least got a striker. Maybe they were hoping that Celtic would would get another striker in January and let them have Johnny Kenny to July and use that time
Now,
between now
no, in
and
fair Stephen Bradley, he will not bring in players. If he doesn't see a player he feels is going to make a difference, he won't bring in anybody. That's the
yeah.
right way, and that's the way he is. But I just
And
wonder if they're kind of going, can we hang in till the
yeah,
summer and then
yeah.
make a number of signings in the summer?
I think Aaron McAnuff's back on a permanent contract now
That's right.
after
And Mandrew as well, actually.
last year. Danny Mandrew. I think Danny Mandrew was a big signing for them.
I think we'll see the best of him now,
Yeah. He knows
post July. Yeah.
he's going to be back in Ireland again. Like so,
Better talk about both. I believe they have improved their squad in terms of the quality of player they've brought in. Like, Cornwall is back. Now, I don't know if he'll start on Sunday, but Buckley is back. They bring leadership to the group, basically.
yeah,
Colin Whelan has come in, obviously. We know if he's fit, he can do well. Niall Moran, you mentioned earlier on, captain of Sligo. John Mountney, Dundalk. So there's a bit of leadership suddenly in the team there, or in the squad.
yeah,
Um, Parsons
and
has come in. Kean Best, who I actually spoke to some, believe it or not, who's a big Preston fan. They actually rate him highly. So that's an interesting one as well. He's come in on loan. But I suppose the really interesting one you'd have to say, and it is really interesting, and the good thing about this, it brings more eyes in the league as well, is Lise Mousset coming in. This could be a really interesting signing, couldn't it?
it's kind of like we said about the Derry signings. It's a wait and see.
Hmm.
Um, I think everybody's looking at the £12 million that
Yeah.
Sheffield United paid Bournemouth for him. But we have to look at the other side of it. He hasn't played in the last 18 months. He hasn't had a club in the last 18 months. Why is that? We don't know.
It's actually
Look,
crazy from the age of 26 to 28. He hasn't had a club,
yeah,
considering he's loads of Premiership games behind him. It's actually sad
yeah.
in many ways, I have to
Uh,
say. But I will
uh,
say this, if they get a fraction of a Premier League player there, like,
no, the
that could be interesting, JP. Even a
I,
fraction.
I seen people saying that just because his signing they've signed him, that's him or that's Bo's in the title race because like say Ross Tierney and Dawson Devoy and say if they get a fraction of him, they'll be nowhere near where they were last year. They were quite close to getting dragged into that relegation playoff spot. They managed to get a few results at the end of the season to get themselves up the table a wee bit away from that. Um, with the signings that they've made over the last couple of weeks, even the signings they've made over the course of the window, I don't see them being anywhere near the relegation playoff spot. I just
And if they are, Mr. Alan Reynolds is in big, big trouble. Put it that way.
yeah,
Because if
I
Devoy now and Tierney from the very start of the season as well,
yeah.
and they get in any team in the country, literally any team in the
I
country.
just don't share the optimism that the Bows fans have. That all of a sudden they're going to break up with half four. Look, they could well do. We're not saying they're not going to, but it's just a bit of a wait and see. And if they can get off the good start on Sunday against Shamrock Rovers with a win in the Aviva, then who knows what the season could pan out for them. And um, I'm hearing that this is the last season at the current Daily Mount Park, and I'm just wondering as this
Hope so.
fixture,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people had um their opinions on why Bose had chosen the Aviva for this game, and some suggesting that they used it as a money spinner and stuff like that. But I'm just interested to
I
wonder
think they're using it as a
have
test.
they used it as a test event? Is what I was just about to say as well.
I
A
did
test
mention this
event
a
to
few
see
months
whether they
ago.
could
Yeah,
use a
yeah.
test event to see if they could use the Aviva for the 2 or 3 years they're going to be out rather than going to Toka Park.
Certainly for Dublin derbies, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that I'm convinced of it, and I was convinced a few
Yeah.
months ago as well.
I
But
just don't. I just don't see. Look, probably will. They probably will end up on a ground share with Shelbourne. That's what everybody's thinking. They're definitely. I don't think I don't think they're going out to Tala. They're probably not going to Richmond Park either.
Mm.
So it's either for me, it's either Tolka Park or the Viva Stadium, and I think it's a test event to see whether it's feasible. They use the Viva over the course of well, or the ARFU allow them is another thing.
That's
But as
true.
you say, Dublin derbies, their home Dublin derbies um
At the
could,
Aviva.
could be held there because it's going to be once, maybe every three, 4 week. A home Dublin derby is probably going to be one every 6 weeks if they're lucky. Like,
In around that, yeah. I suppose the one question I have, to be honest, is can Reynolds mould them into a team unit? There are a lot of good individual players there, and they did have a lot of good individual players last year too. But I'm not sure if Reynolds is the man with the quality of manager in the league. I'm not convinced that he's the man to bring this thing together
yeah,
and put the pieces together and
yeah,
form it into a unit. Like if you just an example, like because like obviously Shelbourne have brought in a lot of exposed players, etc., etc.
yeah.
But if Duff had these players, you'd kind of feel like you get more out of them. As an example,
Yeah. It's one of them ones. Is Reynolds a good number two compared to a good number one? You know, um, would he be better?
well, he's going to be
Look,
tested now.
yeah,
This
him
season
and
will be the
Stephen
test
O'Donnell.
for that.
If him and Stephen O'Donnell was the other way around, would that be a better fit? I don't know. So
Mm.
look, I think Rennie's I wish him well. I suppose I really do, and I hope for his sake that he can get this team gelling. And there's no reason why they can't. Start with a win against Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, I think they will start with a winning against Shamrock Rovers. I think the occasion, like Bows love an occasion like that. We even seen it last year. They had the worst home record in the league, joint home record in the league with Dundalk. I think they won something like two in 18 games, and the two of them were at home to Shamrock Rovers.
Shamrock Rovers.
Do you remember that?
One in the
Mental.
cup and one in the league.
Won the league, won
Yeah.
the cup. Pishek, who they loved the daily amount, got two goals against Shamrock Rovers and didn't score in any other game. So he goes down as a cult hero in my book there, does he not? But
Oh,
I
he
do,
did.
I do
Was.
think they'll win Sunday, JP, because I think that dynamic with Shamrock Rovers have with the mould of games is going to be very, very difficult. Bowles should be right up for this. And as a result, I think they will win the game 2-1.
That's exactly what I have in my head as well. 2-1. They both.
That's brilliant stuff. JP, that was brilliant. The first show of the
Cheers,
season, guys.
Keith.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Give us your predictions. Thanks for watching and please subscribe. See you later. Thanks, JP.
Cheers, Keith.